Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week, watching something and making recommendations along the way as well. In today's episode, a few different topics we'll be touching on. We are still watching Welcome to Derry. Just one more week to go. Don't know how satisfied I'm going to be with this whole thing, but we're going to finish it up. We're going to wrap it up. And also discussing what we will be watching in the future. Plus, of course, discussing a new Netflix film, a prestigious film that just premiered this week called J. Kelly, which has gotten some Academy Award buzz. And lastly, we will be discussing our rewatch of the HBO series Watchmen. Check the show notes so you can jump around to the topic you're most interested in. There will be spoilers along the way. And as usual with these conversations, I'm joined by Darren.
How are you there, Victor? Great to talk to you again.
Great to hear from you too. Let's kick things off and discuss. First of all, I'm going to talk about this in much greater detail this upcoming week, but I mentioned that the HBO deal seemed like it was happening. I forgot to mention when I briefly introduced this, the news had literally broken just moments before Sona and I recorded that conversation about the most recent episode of Pluribus, which I also want to get your opinion of, Darren. And I forgot to mention at the moment that all of that was contingent on the fact that our president would not intercede on the part of one of his best friends who owns Paramount now, and of course is now trying to make an aggressive bid to take the network. And of course, we know the government is going to line up behind the Paramount deal. That's why they gave him all those millions of dollars so they can get their way. So that is obviously this is not yet done, is basically what it comes down to. And it's funny, I will be having a conversation. There's a lot of people complaining, oh man, it's terrible disaster that Netflix won this deal. I got to tell you, if it's all consolidated under the Oracle family, I'm not sure that's really what we want, all of Hollywood to be done by one giant studio. So anyway, it is all remains to be seen. It's not quite done yet, although Netflix is acting like this is a done deal. They're sending out announcements and making it sound like this is all a done deal for Warner Brothers, but I should say for the acquisition of HBO and Warner Brothers. But Paramount thinks that this is not over yet. So I'm sure there'll be much more drama. We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out.
As long as it reduces the amount of apps that I need to sign up for and they still release the good movies in the cinema, I'm all for it, whichever way it falls.
I think that's the problem. The problem is like Warner Brothers, and that's the concern people have. And I'll have a conversation about this later in the week, I think. I agree with that Warner Brothers had a great year putting movies out. They are still very committed to putting stuff out. They know that if they put Dune in theaters, they didn't know this at first, by the way. Remember during the pandemic, they were like Dune Part 1 premiered on HBO first, or I should say on HBO and in theaters at the same time, and definitely cannibalized some of the box office they did there, although that film was still a hit in theaters. But then, of course, they said, no, we're going to release it to theaters first, and then we're going to have a nice long window before it comes to Max, which was only about 3 or 4 months, I think it was. And guess what? That movie made twice as much money as Part 1 did. So people saw it in theaters. And then guess what? It was a massive hit on HBO as well. They even ran it on Netflix. They sold the rights to run it for a limited period of time. So my point is that putting something in theaters, like, for example, Weapons, I'm sure Weapons will have a run at some point, regardless of who acquires HBO, will get a run on Netflix or one of these other streamers because people want to see that movie. So they will play it. They will be able to resell it multiple times. It just seems very dumb if Netflix wants to be like, nope, everything goes to Netflix only and nothing goes to theaters. I'm not sure why that seems like a good business plan for them. But anyway, that's their philosophy. But maybe this acquisition could make them change, or maybe this acquisition isn't going to even happen. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for both those films, I watched them in the cinema and was very keen to watch them at home as soon as they came out.
And of course, another thing they had, and frontrunner at this moment has won everything for Best Picture this year so far, is One Battle After Another, which I saw in IMAX and was extraordinary watching it on a big screen. So definitely adds value to those films, and it just raises they're more likely to get Academy Award wins. They're more likely to have longer runs once they do hit streaming, to have multiple windows after streaming. It all seems dumb to not everything, by the way. I would not be surprised at all. There's a lot of these movies that came out in theaters that maybe could have gone straight to a streamer. Sure, you can be judicious in how you spend that money. But like an Avatar movie, by the way, which was going to get made no matter what, but Avatar's something people want to see in theaters, right? Like that's not, no one wants to see that on their phone. People want to watch that in theaters.
Well, that's exactly right. An investment is being made in cinemas. My local cinema just got a Screen X, and also they're getting an IMAX. We haven't had an IMAX here for 10 or 15 years. So looking forward to that. And that's timed to release with Avatar, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. Two interesting points about the Australian box office. In the US, our box office is still very weak. People, younger men and children and family films are doing very well here, but anything geared at adults, that whole segment of the population simply has not come back to theaters post-COVID. But I think I mentioned this to you previously, or maybe texted it to you, but they just announced that Australia had a record for they broke their admissions record from before the pandemic. And importantly, that's not just the total number of dollars, which of course are inflated by these premium screens, it's the actual admissions. So people have now come back to the levels they were before. That's happened in Europe as well, has not happened in the US. So that's a problem, obviously, for these studios who are making these more and more expensive films. But the second point of that is, even here in the US, those premium screens, like when you think about Sinners, a huge hit on premium screens. When you think about F1, everybody watched that on IMAX here. I remember 5-6 weeks into its run that all the regular screens were you could easily find a seat there, but the IMAXs were still selling out. So the people want the big films and they want an experience on the screen. And we're probably going to see more and more of that. Unfortunately, I'm putting together my top 20, which has turned into like a top 50 list. It was a pretty good year for movies, by the way. And I was actually counting. It's like, yeah, I have 5 or 6 blockbusters on there, but the vast majority of those films are like indies, and they probably cost well under $10 million, maybe $20 million to make. So I do still want those films to have an opportunity in theaters. So, but I don't know if that's the reality of the world anymore, unfortunately. And by the way, most of those films, the smaller ones, other than like Eddington and a couple of the other ones that are on my list, I did watch them at home. I did not watch them in theaters. So it's just the reality of things now. Anyway, interesting to watch, see how that all shakes out. All right, Darren, some release dates for things that are upcoming. Of course, you and I will be discussing Fallout just in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks away from that. So we'll start coverage.
Looking forward to that.
Very much. Yeah, same here. A huge hit, obviously, for Amazon Prime. That is going week to week for everybody. I think that I misspoke in my recollection, maybe because that's how I watched it. Half the season dropped at once and then it went week to week. But actually, no, they all dropped at once. I just didn't have time to watch it all. That's why I broke it up into multiple episodes here on the podcast. But these are actually going to go week to week, which I think is smart. Most streamers should learn that there's an opportunity to build word of mouth over a period of time if you have a show like Fallout, and that's exactly what they're doing here. Stranger Things, of course, wraps up between Christmas and New Year's. There's 2 release windows there, and I'll be touching base on that. The Pit premieres on January 8th on HBO Max. The Night Agent, which is did you ever see The Night Agent? I'm sorry.
I never saw it.
I misspoke, by the way, because I keep forgetting that. The Night Manager, the Tom Hiddleston series. Did you ever watch The Night Manager?
I don't think I've seen either The Manager
either one.
or The Agent. So yeah, in the dark on both.
I do recommend Night Manager, which Sona is a big fan of this series. It came out 10 years ago. It's a John le Carré adaptation. Tom Hiddleston as is incredibly suave. He's just a night manager, but he has a kind of a dark history. He's not really like a spy by profession. Ends up, because he wants to get vengeance on Hugh Laurie, who's the villain of the piece, that he becomes a spy for the government. And it's just sexy and fun and smart and really good. And only 6 or 7 episodes, real short watch. It's on Amazon Prime now. I think it was on AMC back when it premiered, but this whole thing will be on Amazon Prime. So anybody who hasn't seen that, check out the season 1 on Amazon Prime, and then prepare yourself for season 2, which is coming. And by the way, they shot season 2 and 3. They had you wait 10 years for a sequel season, but now they have 2 and 3 ready to go. So I think both of them will premiere at some point this year. The second season, I should say, the first half of these episodes will be is only 6 episodes. So a short binge for anybody who wants to catch up before the new season drops. And that very same day, Darren, Industry comes back. Final season of that. Very much looking forward to it.
Final season, is that right? I guess the actors have all gotten quite famous now, so they've got plenty of other things on their plate.
And the creators of the show, by the way, have an exclusive deal with HBO, and they're already working on another show. So can't wait to see what they come up with next. I was very impressed with the writing and everything in that show and some of the chances it took. I do appreciate sometimes oftentimes there are times when I'm very critical of decisions that were made in Industry, but I appreciate that. And I think we're going to circle back to this on my appreciation of Watchmen. That in my recollection of it, I was 100% on board with Watchmen, and then rewatching it, I'm like, man, there's definitely things that are like intentionally off-putting in Watchmen, and but then they land it right. So I like when something might be rubbing me the wrong way, but then brings me back in. I appreciate that degree of difficulty, let's say. So, and Industry does that too, where I'm like, are we going the right way here? And then by the time we get to the season finale, I'm like, man, that was a great season of TV. But there's a couple of times where I was wobbling there. I'm going like, man, where are we going right now? But there's a talent to that as well.
The finales of Industry, they always just swing for the fences, and it's really fun to see where they land. Absolutely.
That same week, by the way, Hijack season 2. Did you ever finish your Hijack season 1 watch?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, very uneven.
Yes.
But yeah, we enjoyed it as a binge. So, and now they're on a train. Is this correct? I think she sent me the trailer, but I didn't watch it. I just saw it there. There was a train.
It was just a teaser, but yes, they're on a train. So it is like basically just becoming like a Die Hard type of thing with a more intellectual and less action heavy, although he did a little bit of action in the season 1 as well. And yeah, Hijack season 1 is, if you really break it down, is just so silly, but it is a lot of fun. I don't think it takes itself seriously enough. So it's in on the joke, let's say. And I thought it was a blast. So
it was fun. I feel like the little twists and the logic things could be a little bit tighter than what they were. It was like, why did this guy do this? Why did they go this way? Whereas hopefully in season 2 there, you can follow it a little bit better and you can be on board with the characters' decisions.
1 week later on HBO, another big premiere. This is all happening in January, by the way. It's insane the amount of things that are coming out. You have Night of Seven Kingdoms, which is the next Game of Thrones prequel series, a new spinoff based on these short novellas. The first one of them, they've already greenlit the next one as well, which will probably be coming within a year or so. And then 1 week after that, Darren, there's a new show that's been on the radar for a while now. It's called The Beauty. It's based on a comic book. This comic book is about a disease that makes you beautiful and sexually basically undeniable. Like it makes you attractive to everybody. And then, but eventually it kills you in terrible ways. And this is an award-winning comic book that I've never read intentionally because I was waiting for this adaptation to come out when I heard it was coming out. So I was very curious to see, wow, this could be a very interesting adaptation. Darren, there's one problem. This comes to us from Ryan Murphy.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah, it sounded a little bit like The Substance as you were describing it there. So there's always a downside to getting that infinite beauty. But exactly. Ryan Murphy, seriously.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a feeling it's definitely on my radar. I'm definitely going to check out the pilot, but I feel just about every single season of American Horror Story that I'll watch the first couple episodes and then never finish them. But we'll see. I'm open to it.
The amount of pilots that I've seen of Ryan Murphy shows and then never continued.
Exactly. I know. Exactly. Wonder Man is coming from Marvel. And early buzz on this, which felt like it was being dumped. Early buzz on this is that it's very good. And so I'm curious to see this one.
Who's the lead in that? Sorry, I'm jumping in. The lead is some guy that we know.
It is Yahya Abdul-Mateen II from
Watchmen. He's back.
Yeah, he's back. Exactly. And now I am just confirming that. Yes, it is. Before I have to edit that out potentially later. But no, it is him indeed.
Don't know anything about Wonder Man. Don't know how they mix in with the existing films, but sure, new Marvel, why not?
I don't know anything about the character either, but I do know that it's based on a particular series of Wonder Man, like one of the comic book series that apparently is like one of the great all-time comic book series. So if they do a good job adapting it, it could be definitely be something to talk about when it premieres.
Yeah, is great in Watchmen. So yeah, he's definitely got the whole physique and attitude for comic book films.
For sure. Darren, they just announced this weekend, Paradise Season 2 coming February 23rd.
Bring it on.
Big hit for us here on the podcast, obviously. And then also another huge hit for us here on the podcast, Your Friends and Neighbors is coming back on April 4th. Oh, and one more thing. The very next week after that, we have The Boys coming back. Are you caught up on The Boys?
I am caught up. Yes, I think I am. I think I missed a season or half a season there, but I watched the last season, which was pretty fun. And Homelander got a bit of a comeuppance at the end, I think.
But yeah,
I'll check out The Boys. Yeah.
All he does is win, win, win. And I get a little tired of this. And I assume this is finally going to turn bad for him. So I'm a little tired with the repetitiveness of the show and also how ridiculous it is that he hasn't just murdered them all at this point when he could easily do so. But I have watched this far along and I definitely want to see how the story ends.
Did you watch Gen V?
I watched season 1 of Gen V and I just quit. I couldn't watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was the same.
I've heard people say, try to pitch me on season 2. And I'm just like, nah, I've fallen for that before. I can't do it. Can't do it.
I think I watched the first episode and I was like, yeah, I don't know. I can't go back to all that.
Also coming this spring, we have Invincible. Do you watch Invincible?
I have not seen Invincible, but I know it's highly regarded.
This is also from Seth Rogen, another comic book adaptation. And this one, for me, it touches on a lot of the same themes as The Boys, and also actually touches on some of the same themes as Watchmen. It's actually a very good pairing with Watchmen now that you've seen that. I highly recommend this. This is really good. So if you don't mind the animation, which I actually oftentimes prefer animation when it comes to comic book adaptations. So this one I'm a fan of this one. So give it a sample. Watch episode 1, season 1, obviously, and make sure you watch the credits. Don't skip to the next episode because something truly shocking happens at the end of the very first episode of that show, which will hook you into the season. So yeah, check it out and see if you enjoy it. But anyway, it's wrapping up this year. I think season 4 this is. And season 3 was the first half of season 3 was what's going on? Nothing was happening. Second half was much more satisfying, but very curious to see how they end this one as well. Euphoria, season 3 is coming this spring as well. No date yet. The Savant, which one most anticipated series for me in 2025, which was delayed, now is also coming sometime in the first half of 2026. Lanterns, the Green Lanterns series is coming to HBO later in the year. Neuromancer is getting adaptation. Have you ever read Neuromancer?
I have not, no. It's been on my list since I was a kid, but no, I haven't.
Same thing here. Yeah, so Neuromancer is coming. I may now not read it to actually watch it and then maybe read it in parallel. And of course, the new Blade Runner series is coming in this spring as well. So a pretty busy spring. All those shows undated so far. So.
Oh, wow. Who's behind the Blade Runner series?
I don't remember if it's anybody of note. I'll have to do more research. There's just so much research I could do. But as we get closer to that, once we get a date, I promise I will do my research. All right, Darren, did you watch Jay Kelly?
I watched Jay Kelly. Yes, I have a bit to say about Jay Kelly.
Yes, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, should I go now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay, Jay Kelly. I watched it in parts just because I had a really busy weekend and I watched the first 45 minutes first and thought it was pretty good, pretty captivating. George Clooney playing George Clooney or a version
yes. of. They've made the same movies. They've made the same movies.
They've made exactly the same movies. Quite astounding. And I thought the scene with is it Billy Crudup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I was really on board with it. So George Clooney is he's an aging movie star and he's having a bit of a midlife or later life crisis and doesn't want to do movies anymore. And he feels like his life is not the one that he's supposed to live, and he's missed his kids' childhood growing up and they're about to leave and he's having all these regrets. And I really enjoyed the first 45 minutes until they got to the train. Yeah. And then it kind of turned into a little bit of a comedy. It felt like they were going for like a Richard Curtis type vibe.
A little bit,
Yeah, which only the UK can pull off that kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Yeah.
And it just, the further I got through the film, the more it gnawed at me, the more I thought it was just, oh, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but these like elites that spoke down to me, and I was not on board with it at all. By the time it finished, I thought it was ridiculous, but extremely well made. Some of the camera moves are quite brilliant, especially that opening one that they do.
Yeah, I thought it
Um,
was beautiful. That opening sequence was really beautiful.
really incredible. But tell me what you think about it, because I think you might have a different idea than me.
Yeah, I'm very curious to get your where you felt that they were insulting you, because my also had a very similar experience. I thought that opening shot is beautiful. I love the that deconstruction. I always like this, by the way, in general. I love this deconstruction of just how you see how the the sausage is made, but then when the camera lines up and the performance is there and everything's just lined up, it's like the magic of the movies, right? This fantasy you can live inside of, and how seductive that is. And then, of course, there's this whole paralleling of that with Jay Kelly himself and how he's living inside this version of being a star, and not just being an actor, a working actor, but like the fantasy of being an actual, in this world, make one of the most famous stars in the world, like he's George Clooney, basically. But also like George Clooney, like not as big a star as he was, right? He's not there. They actually make these jokes about, well, that's not going to theaters anymore. So yeah, exactly. Just like Clooney's movies now mostly go to streaming, but he's also a nearly billionaire because he's, which they don't get into here, but he's incredibly recognizable, incredibly famous. Clooney's very good at making fun of his own persona. He's done that with the Coen brothers. It's not as cartoonish as that, but he does have fun with it. And and just the storytelling early on, the kind of finding out that that director that gave him his first big break has died, and then the way that the movie just segues into his memory of it was all beautifully done. This is Noah Baumbach, by the way, co-writing with Emily Mortimer, the actress, which I thought was interesting. Speaking of British humor. So a strange thing, I don't think he's worked. He co-wrote Barbie with his wife, but who's here as well. Greta Gerwig is here in a small role, but not. But I don't know that he's written this. And by the way, like people hate like Margot at the wedding. I love Margot at the wedding because it's like all that uncomfortableness that people can't stand that film because it deals with the ugly pettiness of people and how awkward they are in these kind of basic social circumstances. I really like that about Baumbach, and I think when he at his best, like Marriage Story, he's one of my favorite writers. And I'm sure for fact he wrote a lot of the Ken stuff in Barbie, which I think is very, very funny. So he has a very acerbicness to his writing. And for me, what happened with this film as it went along was that even in the musical choices and stuff, it became so sappy and treacly. And I'm like, where is this coming from? And it basically, maybe for very different reasons than you're describing, by the end, it just felt so saccharine and fake. And
Yeah.
it just didn't work at the end. I did give the film a minor recommendation because I did think there were some things that really recommended it. I did love, as silly as it was, the sequence on the train. I liked the way that he gets to play hero very intentionally. He wants to perform being a hero so he can say, I'm not just some guy who sits by the pool in between making movies. I'm an actual hero. And then, of course, that gets deflated by this guy's just having some kind of psychotic break. He's not some professional thief or whatever. And I love the visuals of it. I thought it was beautiful the way he ends up in this little Italian cemetery, which, if you've been to Europe, they're just these random cemeteries that come around these very small villages. So all of this was very beautiful, reminded me of my trips to Europe. So all of that I liked enough that I would recommend it. Oh, Adam Sandler, I haven't brought him up. Terrific performance. Like, I thought he was great in Uncut Gems, but there is still a level of Adam Sandler-ness to him, even in Uncut Gems. He has completely eradicated any tics of Adam Sandler in this film, which I thought was pretty impressive. Yeah, and the performances are very good. But yeah, it just becomes, at some point, past that midpoint, like you described, it just becomes, what is this about anymore? And it just didn't really, the script really fails towards the end for sure.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of things in that film that sound really good, but they just didn't play for
Yeah.
me. I thought, apart from Billy Crudup, who was excellent in that one scene, Adam Sandler was the best thing in it. And he didn't have a huge role, but yeah, you could really feel that experience that he's had with those types
Sure.
of people who are his friends, but they're still getting a 15% cut of his pay. So are they really friends? I thought of the word that describes the movie for me, especially the second half, and that's pretentious. It just felt too like it was being too clever, and it just didn't connect with me, especially when he's having these flashbacks, which are, as you say, they're beautifully done, where he goes into his old memories, but then he starts narrating his old memories.
Yeah.
And it just felt like artifice to me. It just felt ridiculous. And then when he's dancing at the festival,
that's
in his
terrible.
honor, terrible, isn't it? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Didn't buy it at all. The final shot, there's a little bit of a cheeky final shot. Didn't buy it at all.
That
I
was
just
terrible.
turned it
Yes.
off in
Agreed.
disgust. Yeah. But I did see that there is a making of J. Kelly on Netflix. And I quickly started that just to try to just change my thinking about it. And it shows you how they go through the creation of that opening one-er, which is really cool. So I'm going to probably continue watching that. It gives me a little bit of a better image of that film. And I think Noah Baumbach plays a director in the film as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting film to talk about, and I think it's gonna hit for a few people. And even if you don't like it, there's plenty to be interested in.
Yeah, kind of worked for me because I've heard some very negative reviews on the film that basically read it very literally as who cares about this fading multi-millionaire, right? But I actually saw it a little more metaphorically, which in general I do that anyway with films, because I think if being too literal with any film, I think is a kind of a waste of time in a way. But so for me, I took it a little more metaphorically. And I think that there was another film I'm trying to think of right now that I just saw recently that thought maybe that helped me watch Jay Kelly also because it intersected a lot with these ideas of just when times passed you by and you have the decisions you've made and how you live with them and the things you did do and the things you didn't do. And of course, the nostalgia for those times, but also the missed opportunities with your family, those connections. So seeing it that way, I think I could relate to the material outside of the scope of being a really famous person. And honestly, the other thing that kind of worked for me in the film was Sandler, because I'm thinking about Sandler being there and really stripping away all of his persona. And it really made me like love him as a person in a way I haven't, because he was someone I just could not watch on screen for so long. And I've come to appreciate his non-comedic performances, his brand of comedy in these kind of over the top, actually Happy Gilmore. I really do like Happy Gilmore, but a lot of his other stuff is some of his biggest hits. I just find like that kind of screaming man-child thing is just the same shtick over and over again, just not funny for me at all. But what I was thinking as I'm watching this is Adam Sandler is more famous than George Clooney, right? And he is standing next to him, interrogating that type of fame, which I thought was just really interesting to watch, just the dynamic between them. And that worked enough for me, even though those are things, like you mentioned, those are things that work for me in a film that is pretty not very good in many places. After the first half, I would say, I think the first half is pretty strong, but after the first half, it really is just like it's as if they put everybody on a train and then they're like, what do we do now?
It's really funny because George Clooney, as the movie star, he's probably dresses the same and acts the same as George Clooney, the person.
Right.
Whereas Adam Sandler, the movie star, in real life, you've seen him, he wears like jorts and it doesn't look like the multimillionaire that he is. And he's probably a little bit more relatable in real life, whereas George is just on another level.
They're both incredibly rich, though.
I did like when they have their entourages and they rock up in the same black cars and they jump on the on the private jets. Yeah, it's fun. And there's another actor in it, Patrick Wilson, who
Yes.
also
Yeah.
plays like I guess he's supposed to be a Ben Affleck type character.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite understand. Yeah, whereas he has tons of family, hardly
Yes.
any entourage that he's paying, and that it's all family and extended family that he likes to bring onto these things, whereas George just has people that he pays.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about who the corollary is. Based on his name, you're thinking Ben Affleck right away. But then describe when he's describing his career, where he apparently had a really big hit, and now he hasn't been able to book anything for a couple of years. Nothing big. He's like doing like little things, and that's part of the reason he's have this problem with Sandler's characters. That conversation they have. But I'm trying to think who's that corollary. Someone who had a really big hit, and then they did, it's like Chris Evans or something. I was just thinking about that, how Chris Evans had, like, he was Captain America, and then post Captain America, he's made a couple of interesting small films, but all his like big films have been terrible, truly terrible. So I'm not sure if that's the corollary they're going with, although not the age wise. I guess Patrick Wilson's older, so.
I always there's something about Patrick Wilson. I really enjoy him every time he pops up on screen. He just seems like a good bloke.
I like him, and he's one of the owners of the theater that had the Montclair Film Festival. Him and his wife live nearby here, and every time you see him, we just in one of these events, he seems like really nice. So he just seems like a very nice person. Always like to see him in anything. Haven't seen. Have you? Did you even bother watching, now that it's on HBO, the final? Not so final. I'm sure it's not the final, considering it made $500 million. The last, what's it called?
Oh, The Conjuring. No,
Yeah.
I haven't caught up with it yet. I'm going to watch it with my 13-year-old daughter at some stage, but she was right into the black phone and she's off The Conjuring now, so maybe
really?
next week. Yeah, we'll see.
All right, next topic. Let's talk about Welcome to Derry, this most recent episode, which is called The Black Spot. Do you have good things to say about the show? Because I have some good things to say, but a lot of things I'm going to say are pretty negative. But where do you want to start?
This is the type of episode that makes me regret even continuing with this series. And it's almost the type of episode that I will not watch the final episode out of spite because I hated it so much. But I will try to think of some good things to say. But my goodness, this was a tough watch. And this has been where we're heading the whole time. I just don't understand. I think the fact that it was Andy Muschietti that directed this, and this is his big episode, it's inconceivable, from the staging of the opening fire to the death of one of the main kids to Pennywise going to sleep but then waking up again. I just don't know what, and also the change in the military's idea, James Remar's character, of what he wants to let it out in the whole world now. I could not follow this, and I was really mystified. But I'm going to have to think about saying some positive things, but I'll let you go first.
I was hoping you're going to be more positive on this. I do have some positive things to say. I would say that despite the fact that I agree the staging of the fire was, parts of it are impressive, that it's practical fire, etc. But so much of it was just felt rushed and choppy. And then I saw the behind the scenes featurette, by the way, and I'm thinking they're using practical fire. They're like compositing this guy. They actually show him like catching fire, his pants catching fire when the Molotov cocktail goes through the window. So a lot of these practical effects that are being done, but then they have the children there, and obviously have to protect the children. So they're shooting this like in different circumstances, and they're compositing it all together. So on the one hand, it's impressive that they did this, but on the other hand, I'm like, maybe that's not how you stage this thing. Do the kids have to be there or whatever, right? So it's just, I kind of appreciate what they're doing, but it doesn't really work. And it also feels rushed, and the place just goes up like a tinderbox. It's a little strange. And it also seems so over the top that these people would not even come back to burn the place down, but we're just ready to burn the place down from the moment one. It just seems a little rushed, to say the least.
And we just saw a great one-er at the start of Jay Kelly,
right?
Superbly choreographed shot. And then this is supposed to be a one-er, but it's clearly not. But it plays like one. It just feels like a cheat.
Yeah, and this style of this show, here's the problem with us criticizing it, to be honest. the ratings on this episode are like through the roof. People are like, the best, one of the best episodes. And by the way, this show
Are you serious?
is on like top 10 lists at the end of the year. Now that the top 10 lists are coming out, I'm like, what are these people smoking? and
give us some.
Yeah, exactly. Please pass it on so we can enjoy the show. But it's just strange, to say the least. And there's so many script problems. But the other thing I was going to mention that I thought worked pretty well is in the fire, some of the imagery of Pennywise with the people, the other dead people behind him, and his eyes glowing. So some of just the imagery here, and I think that's the other thing, is that maybe this is just a fundamental problem, period. I don't find Pennywise scary. Like, I don't know if you do, but I didn't find him scary in the It movies. I just don't find this character scary. So and that is a problem, obviously, when the big payoff is like to reveal him here in all his glory. And I can appreciate that the design work is impressive but it's not scary. So I don't know what I'm really getting out of the character. And so a lot of this just didn't quite work for me.
They overdo the eyes, don't they? It's in every episode.
I know they've been doing it more and more. Yeah. And at this point in the entire episode, he has his eyes glowing.
But also Skarsgård's voice, he's so intent on making it different and weird and scary in quotation marks that he's overdoing it, I think.
Oh, I agree. So the fire eats up a lot of the I was about to just move on to the next thing, but I got to also talk about the fact that the whole thing of sacrificing Richie and to save Marge. And not only that, I like the character, obviously, and it's okay to kill a character that you care about, but it just seems so ridiculous. Like they spent so much time like talking to each other and everything. They're really trying to milk that scene. And I'm like, if they'd spent that much time trying to get out of there, they would have survived, right? So, and then all of it just is, I think, just bad decisions. And then if we had seen some charred version of our Richie at the end, then the sacrifice would have felt more real or whatever. But he's untouched in some ways. So it's like there's no reality to any of this. And it just didn't, so I can't be vested in any of it. Oh, yes.
Anyway, it was a real Titanic moment, wasn't it? Where
they
opened the box.
Yeah.
There's not enough room for both of us in the box. I'm like, I wouldn't be getting in that box.
Barbara Muschetti in that featurette at the end says, well, we wanted to have she literally says, we wanted to have some emotional stakes, so we had to kill one of the kids. And that's literally how she says it. And I'm like, that's exactly what it feels like. It's, well, the people are probably not that vested in it, which is crazy to me, right? Spend time, like you just killed all these people. It's not even like they killed 2 or 3 people, which I think in the original version of this story from the novel, it's not like everybody died that night. I think this is much more of a massacre than the original version of it was. But to kill everybody in that place, and it's, but we don't care about those people.
Yeah,
we actually care about this kid, right? And I'm like, okay, well then you did a really bad job of setting this world up if that's the case, right? And I know all this negativity is yucking on a lot of people's yum because people like this whole thing.
Well, actually, the opening. Okay, so I got something positive. So the opening where Skarsgård as Pennywise the clown. As the father.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing his little thing was really cool. And I liked the practical kind of effects of the flowers and the little groundhogs coming up. And I was enjoying it, but there was so much reaction from the kids in the audience that I was like, well, I'm not really feeling the same reaction as they are.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting negative again. But I did like that whole setup. I do like stage shows in media like that. I think that can be really fun.
There are things here, and this might be an issue I have with the Muschettis in general. There are things that work in their filmmaking, but so much of it doesn't. It's not my flavor. But I liked Mama a lot, which Guillermo del Toro, their first film they made where he produced. And I really like that film. And I think it's probably because del Toro is there and has a real feel for the tragedy of that story, the Mama story, and guided them to it. And I think that's, maybe I'm biasing my opinion there, but I think that's why that film works for me. And the other stuff they've done really has not worked for me. But here's another example of where things work, but it's very scattershot. When, yes, that's actually great that you came back to that. I almost forgot to bring that up at all. But that 1908 flashback I liked it. I liked the way the stage is set up. A lot of that seems to be practical. I liked how that was defined or creating that moment. But the best part about it, when the kids are all overreacting, all that kind of feels a little, once again, a little too staged out and a little too over directed or overdone in general. But when they're jumping on the stage and being crazy, I liked that there is the it character in the form of this boy is like watching from a barn nearby, and just the kid standing there, not when you see his point of view, but just seeing him still while all these kids are like going crazy in the foreground was really effective. Like really like, oh, that's really creepy looking there. That kid creeped me out. And it's one of the few things that did creep me out. And then how he turns up at the end, and we get an idea that he wants to inhabit Pennywise because he sees that it attracts children, and then he wants to use that to lure these kids.
Yes, that's cool. That's really cool, actually.
And even that is rushed, to be honest. Like that could have been longer and it would have worked better, I think, even because it's all very abbreviated. They really overstuffed this episode. And that's the other complaint I have. They have overstuffed this show so much that I think to myself, could you imagine all we're seeing is the whole story, these other things happening in the background, but it's Halloran having these powers, discovering, just have him discover the actual plot that the military has. They've brought him in here, how they actually want to unleash this thing rather than control it or contain it, and him losing control of his powers and coming face to face with this demon. That's enough show. That's enough show. But then we have this other character, Will's dad, who has to also be there so that he can do that. Isn't that a redundant character? What do we need that character for also? And then also the kids, if we spent a whole bunch of time with the kids, that's another way you could go with this show, really focus on the kids and these like kids who are losers, like in the original show, and then, or social outcasts, let's not call them losers. And how that's from the book itself. But then to have them like form this team and then find camaraderie and then defeat the demon, or maybe not, that could be a subversion of what we're expecting over the course of the season. That could be a way to tell the story. But they're trying to tell all these stories at the same time. So I'm not vested in everything is skin deep. I'm not vested in anything that's going on.
Yeah, they're spread too thin. And even the Native Americans, they're just coming to when it's convenient.
It's such an insult to use the Native Americans this way, to be honest. It's like a movie from the 1970s or 80s. You move the gravestones, but you didn't move the bodies. It feels like something from another generation. And yeah, even that is silly. My favorite part of all of this, by the way, is, and here's the other flaw with this, in my opinion, is that knowing too much about this it character does not make him scarier. He's like, okay, I killed enough kids now. Who decided what member of the Native American tribe in the past decided that 17 children was the correct number of children to murder before he would go back to sleep?
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah.
And then he goes back to sleep. And that's the craziest part about it. So I'm like, all right, so because the dumb military has now decided that it's better to unleash this thing, which we'll talk about. I definitely want to spend a couple of minutes on that for sure, this plot. But beyond that is just the fact that you have this killing creature that now is killing only a certain number of children. Once he has enough hash marks on enough punches on his sandwich card, he gets the free sandwich. But he basically goes and he can now go to sleep again. And so that's the other thing that's crazy about it. So everything we've seen in other, not only in the movie It and the other adaptations of it, but also in the book and the different, if you read the book, going back these 27 years, each time the kids do all this research and discover over and over again these stories every 27 years, that each one of those iterations, he just killed X number of kids and then went back to sleep. Like what was the purpose of what the Losers Club did in the It novel itself if he was just going to go to sleep anyway? It doesn't make any sense. You literally it's as if the kids, whatever they did in the next book, it didn't matter. He was just going to go to sleep anyway. Yeah. They just coincidentally were like, they did their ritual and they go, oh, he's dead now. And it's, no, he's not. He's just coming back at 20. That's just his regular sleep cycle. So you literally have lessened the mythology by doing this. It's so silly. And then we got to talk about, okay, so we have the whole Raiders of the Lost Ark finale, right? Where
Oh yes. Oh, the shot. Yeah, the shot through the back of the van or the back of the army truck and they're carrying the box very
yeah.
reverently.
And the
Oh yeah,
music sounds, there's definitely some John Williams going on in that music for sure.
yeah, totally.
And then they take it back and they're like, no, we want to take it out so we can dissolve it so that we're taking this thing away because, look, the country's turning on itself. And first of all, there's a lot of irony in hearing this, where it's like the biggest risk to the country is not outside, it's in, something that our leaders have said in this very country in the past few months. So that's the first thing that's crazy about that. But the other thing that's funny about it was watching this in correlation to Watchmen, because I'm like, this guy has the same plan where it's, well, all I got to do is if we scare them, we keep them in line. But it is a very weird. I did not expect to see this Watchmen interaction. And some of the people here are also were writers on the Watchmen. So I'm like, I wonder if some of that was recycled from Watchmen. But what is this plan? Go ahead.
It's just his speech. It's just that's it. He just does this little speech to Hanlon that he's been practicing. And that's what we're supposed to believe now. And it's just so forceful that we're like, yes, that's a great plan. We understand exactly what it is.
Yeah. Hey, look, if we have to kill a bunch of kids, but think about how many fewer people will die. And I like how he said this calculation was like, well, more kids die in car accidents than are killed by Pennywise. So let's give it a shot. And I'm like, first of all, it is crazy that you've done this calculation. Like, you don't know how many people he's going to kill if he's set free. Like, who did the calculus on this? Do you have a scientist who's doing this calculation of how many it's going to kill? You don't know what's going to happen. And on the other hand, you also have the crazy situation where this is just acceptable. And what is going to happen when like news starts leaking out in other countries being like, there's like a demon in the United States that's killing people all the time? It's pretty weird. I'm definitely not going on vacation there.
But also, what was his idea? But it goes to sleep every 27 years anyway. So what was his idea?
Apparently, no, he woke it up.
Roam the country?
Yeah. No, I mean, but he
roam.
I'm guessing here that this is why this thing is so ridiculous at this point, that it makes you ask questions you shouldn't be asking. When they destroy that pillar,
that's why I woke up again.
Yeah, he wakes up. So it's, I'm free now, which once again makes you think about the whole silly, who decided back in the day that we're going to put these pillars up and we'll let him kill. Like someone sat down and goes, okay, like they did the math. They're like, okay, if we put 12 pillars, then it's every 27 years. They're like, well, maybe we could do 15 pillars and it'll be even less. And they're like, yeah, but we can't find any more of these rocks. So let's just start. 27 is good enough. So we'll live for 27 years. Did they negotiate with the monster going, I will go to sleep after 8 kids? And they're like, or they say 8 kids. And he's like, no, it's got to be more. 50. And they're like, no. And they work their way down to 17. What is going on? He's either contained or he's not contained, right? It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. The fact that I didn't even get it means it wasn't illustrated that well to me.
No, he was ready to go to sleep. He's like, time for bed. And then he doesn't even kill anybody else after eating that guy's head. He's just, do I have some face on my face?
Funny. I had to replay that a few times to even work out what he was saying in that moment.
And and one more thing to bring up, of course, is the whole Madeline Stowe situation with the daughter, which, again, this is just such slop. I actually like the daughter storyline. And again, if that had been developed early on in the season and had been a through line throughout, and seeing her maybe torn, like trying to protect these kids, but then thinking maybe it is her dad, there's some interesting pathology there for sure, right? But instead we see her like, I turned him in, my lover, because I knew it would draw you in. You couldn't resist. And then he's just like, bah. And she said, and she's like, you're not my dad. That's all it took for you to figure this out. It just doesn't make any sense.
I'm just speechless. Didn't she have a life of like bringing him these kids, and she still didn't work out that it's not her dad?
Yeah. How about the last time when you were feeding your kids? Exactly. Yeah. All right. You're probably not going to watch the next season of this, as I am probably not going to watch either. But I do have a question for you, which is, we have now seen previews that the plan here is to go back 27 years and then back another 27 years. So, of course, we've seen now previews of 27 years ago, the insane asylum with the kids. And then 27 years before that, we see the Pennywise, the birth of Pennywise, let's say. Of those two, which are you more vested in seeing?
Definitely the one where the Madeline Stowe is a child, and I like the creepy kid. So maybe the creepy kid stalking the actual Pennywise the clown is much more interesting to me. But I feel like they've already showed the key moments of that in this series, so I'm not sure what else they need to explore there.
That's my concern too, is that I feel like this season of show, this very season we're watching, has very little plot. They had very little plot to work with. And instead of being like, well, let's have like one really strong storyline and then build out this universe even more. Like, what was Derry like at this time? And like really fleshing out these things. Instead, they introduced like 25 characters and have a lot of individual events that are happening and lots of individual, this person's arrested, wrongfully convicted, this person is getting bullied in school, this person is fighting with the dad, that the dad's maybe turning dark to the dark side because of his interactions with Pennywise. And you have all these individual things just all over the place, sometimes in one episode, not having one succinct focus, but having 20 different characters, having 20 different things happening. And once again, I don't know what I'm supposed to be paying attention to most of the time. And but they took very little plot to do that. And to your point, exactly what I want to see in the flashback, I feel like I saw it all in 5 minutes. Are you going to give me that again in a season of TV? Drag out 15 or 20 minutes of plot for 9 episodes? I don't know what the point of that is, to be honest.
It's hard enough to do a successful prequel anyway when you know what's happened, and now they're trying to do 2 more successful prequels of TV shows that are really not that successful. I guess they could have O'Halloran in the previous the next one, but you know, what more can they do with him? We've already explored him a little bit. It hurts my head thinking about it, and not in a good way.
Right. All right, last topic. Let's talk about, you finished the last 3 episodes of Watchmen. Yes. What did you think about this rewatch? Yeah.
Let's be a bit more positive because
yes.
Yeah. I absolutely loved this rewatch. I was just addicted to keep watching the next episode. Every episode is so different to the previous one, and it explores so many different themes. And I have to say the absolute highlight was episode 7, where it's the date between Abar and Dr. Manhattan, the first date, but it's also their whole relationship happening at the same time, falling in love, the tragedy, and just the little bits and pieces that you remember your first date with your current partner and when you actually fell in love with them. I thought it was brilliant, an absolute top shelf episode of television, and it really affected me at the end. And that brought back all the memories that I had 6 years ago of why I loved this show. Just a perfect episode of television. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about it.
Yeah, this is actually episode 8. It's an episode called A God
episode 8.
Walks into a bar. Get it? And a lot of puns in this show, not only in the titles here, by the way, but if you ever watch or I should say, if you ever listen to the soundtrack to this, which I've listened to multiple times, that there's a lot of puns in the titles there as well, relating to things that happen in the show. So do read the titles of the songs on the Trent Reznor soundtrack, which is excellent, by the way, truly excellent. But yeah, the culmination point of this whole entire season is that penultimate episode 8. And yeah, it's this incredible, it's not only that it shows you in the experience of being Dr. Manhattan, someone who lives outside of time and is actually able to see the totality of his experience of his whole entire life in one moment, and which is in the comic book as well, by the way. So there's it's interesting as an adaptation that there are things that parallel what happens in the comic book without being explicitly what happens in the comic book. But there's an entire issue that shows you from Dr. Manhattan's perspective that he is experiencing everything, the death of his original self through to him becoming Dr. Manhattan, the relationship he has with one woman, he leaves her for another woman. There's an interesting parallel here that the woman who was abandoned by him for the younger woman it's the mom and the daughter in the first comic, and then we see that it is, what's the actress's name I'm thinking of?
Jean Smart.
Jean Smart, right? Exactly. Jean Smart is now here playing like in the role that her mom plays in the comic books as the older woman. And you have Abar as the younger woman here, and they do meet each other. So anyway, there's all these interesting parallels. If you know the comic book that are riffed on throughout the course of here, Rorschach has his origin story episode, or one of the episodes, I should say, one of the issues of the comic book. And here we have, oh man, Mirror, what's his name again? Looking Glass. Looking Glass. Always get it
Mirror
wrong.
Guy.
Mirror Guy, yeah. That's what I call him. But Looking Glass, and you see his origin story. So there's a lot of paralleling here in these different versus the comic book itself, which very interesting to rewatch the comic book and think about how this is an adaptation of the comic book more thematically and in these interesting parallel ways. So definitely I recommend people check out the comic book, read it if you have, or like I said, I mentioned this earlier, but on HBO Max itself, you have two adaptations that are excellent. One is, you can watch the Zack Snyder one, it's fine, but it's not fine. Yeah. But there are things that are missing there that are key to this adaptation. And I'd say to get a more complete view of the comic book, there is Watchmen Part 1 and Part 2, which is just basically a very faithful adaptation of the comic book, animated, but truncated, but includes even like the Voyage of the Dawn Freighter as part of it, like much more true to the original comic book. And there's also a DC, one of these comic book adaptations where you literally have the comic book frame by frame by frame, just animated with the dialogue bubbles and everything. And that's available too, if anybody wants to check that out. But
that's cool. Do they have voices doing those dialogue, or do you have to read it on the screen?
Well, they do have voices. The only thing I would say is, if I did watch the parts, the stuff that's missing from the Part 1, Part 2 animated movie, I watched the individual comic episodes. For example, Rorschach's has a whole entire issue of his backstory, which is like 5 minutes in the movie, because they had to cut the movies. The animated version, Part 1, Part 2, is over 3 hours long, the two together. And so they have to cut some stuff out. The faithful adaptation, issue by issue, each issue is about 30 minutes long. So it's 6 or 7 hours. So obviously you have to cut things out to make it. But here's I'd say one negative thing about that. You have a narrator doing voices. It's like listening to an audiobook. They have different voices for the characters, but it's a single voice doing, which I didn't love. Yeah. But the movies, the adaptation, which again, very faithful to the comic book, just a little abbreviated, but very faithful to it, has an all-star cast. Matthew Rhys is one of the voices, and all very recognizable voices playing the different characters.
Yeah, I wonder how this TV show plays for someone who has never been exposed to any of the previous text and the comics. But for someone that did read the comic, it builds on it so incredibly, and it twists it and takes it down streams and lanes that you would never think of. And it's so successful in that way. It's quite mind-bending the way that you can think about it.
And this just to circle back to that episode again, episode 8, that seeing Dr. Manhattan having this experience of being able to travel through time and see the whole entire relationship. And like you said, that it is such a perfect episode. And talk about bad writing versus good writing. The writing here is so beautiful that when they meet for the first time, and when he says something like inadvertently funny, and of course also has all these echoes to things that we've seen, it's like we're on a date with them. I find myself like smirking at them as they have this very great, this fantastic first date, like really, like truly one of the greatest first dates of all times, which of course he has a huge advantage since he's known her for decades. When he meets her for the first time, he knows everything that's going to happen. And the way that it's almost like the worst pickup line in the world, that I've actually known you for 20 years. But it works really well. But there's so much fantastic stuff in this episode. One of the greatest things in this episode, by the way, I love the fact that your favorite song is about to play. And then it comes on and she's like, well, now I know you're full of it because I've
Yeah.
never heard the song before. And he goes, and now that's your favorite song. Very convenient thing to say.
That's so cool. Coincidentally, I watched it's kind of a romantic movie that's just come out on HBO Max. It's got Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield in it. It's called
Oh,
We
yes.
Live in Time.
Mm-hmm,
It's not the
yes.
type of movie I would normally watch, but my wife wanted to watch it, so I watched it with her. And it's kind of similar to this
Yes.
episode
Mm-hmm.
of Watchmen in that it shows every aspect of their relationship from when they first meet, when they're thinking about having children, when they have their child, but all in different time periods. It's all cut up so it's not chronological at all.
Yep.
So you're experiencing their whole relationship in different times. And it works quite well, I thought. And I thought it was a very watchable film if you like that kind of romance drama type thing. But yeah, I'm seeing bits and pieces of media that take me back to this episode of The Watchmen where you're experiencing everything at once, which is a weird way to think of things.
And I love that all the little Easter eggs in there as well. I love how in the end, when we see these final moments before when we come out of this reverie, although we're still in his memory, actually, that's the other really cool thing about it. And then as the episode plays out, we actually jump into the current moment and then I have to make waffles. And she's like, what are you doing? And he's walking on the pool and she's like, why are you doing this? And he goes, it's going to be important later. And also the fact that it's like he breaks those eggs and he's like, watch those eggs. And he's like giving her all these clues that she's going to need for later. And, but then we realize that it's actually still that we're in the story he's telling. And like you said, it is so incredible when I know you're going to sit here and accept things as they are, but I'm going to go out there and save your life. And he goes, this is like one of the last few moments they spend together. Spoilers, but no one should be listening to this if you don't plan to watch this. So anyway, he says to her, this is the moment. And it was like, man, that hit me so hard. Hit me so hard.
Oh, that's good because it hit me too. My goodness, that is just great writing, and it's one of those things that you can't wrap your head around it.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of it. By the way, my wife is not a big sci-fi person. She has never watched The Watchmen. She doesn't know anything about it. She watched this with me. I probably gave her a couple of details here and there, but she totally got what was going on. She loved this episode. And as confusing as it was, her breath was taken away at the audacity of it rather than being like, I don't know what's going on, it makes my head hurt. But of course, the emotion of it also, because who hasn't had those moments where, like you said right now, like you watch another movie and you're thinking about this show, but that's just when we're talking about TV shows. But, who hasn't had those moments in life where you're like, man, this is like a sliding doors moment right now and you're living it. I think about that all the time when I see my daughter and I'm like, man, like any little thing goes different 10 years ago or whatever. And this moment's not happening right now. And it's just so crazy when you think about that. And it really digs into that. It's just really an incredible episode of TV.
It really is. It really is. And after watching that episode, going into the finale was maybe a little bit of a letdown.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. But they stick the landing in a fun and interesting way right at the end. But I think having all the characters in the one spot and having the comeuppance of the villain and it didn't hit me as hard, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. The ending, I think I previewed that last week, that the ending is a little bit of a disappointment only because it can't reach these incredible highs of some of those highs. Like Looking Glass's backstory is incredible. Yeah. The backstory of Hooded Justice is incredible. And then, of course, culminating with this absolutely breathtaking episode, the 8. And then they tie everything up. There's fun in there as well. Like you said, there's a little tragedy. There's more than a little tragedy in there. There's a lot of comedy in there as well. Like they kind of have some pretty dark comedy when you consider it. But I still think that it pays off all these themes as well. And I think what makes that episode work for me, what kind of puts it beyond being just disappointing, being like fine, but kind of disappointing, the thing that puts it at the higher level is when she talks to her grandfather at the end. And he's talking about how, I actually wrote down a quote. He's saying, so you know everything about me. You took my nostalgia. She says, yeah, I took all of them. So he's like, so now you know everything. And she talked about how angry she was and she was feeling what he was feeling. He tells her that under the mask, he had all these different feelings, but the anger was more fear. It was all this frustration. It was all these other things that she was feeling. And that's what led to the anger. And he said, you can't heal under a mask. Wounds need air, which then also makes me think about all the way back, I think very importantly, the very first episode with the whole idea of the massacre in Tulsa, which is something that is explicitly was something that was erased from any history books in Tulsa. It was like such a shame. And the idea of just like saying like you could do something terrible and then not, and the history is complicated. Like a lot of terrible things were done in the past, but at least to accept them in some ways, but then to just bury it all and pretend it never happened and then gaslight the populace that, oh no, never mind about that, is insane, right? And I think circles all the way back to that. We literally go back to that moment where he's in the same theater that he was 100 years before when he was this boy, and being like, we need to pull the hood off. We need to like air out our grievances, or else we're never going to get moved past these things.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to that tragedy that's in Tulsa, right? Yeah. That real tragedy that actually happened.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like and it's something that was amazing that the show did this, that the show really in the moment, people were like, that really happened. Like people were shocked when you hear a lot of these articles after the first episode came out and people like discovered all that or rediscovered it. And like the show literally circles back to that moment and did it. Like this became a talking point after that. So, and of course it fixed everything. Everything's great now.
Everything's fixed.
Race relations are perfect now.
I did like how the BLM movement took the opening titles from Watchmen, and they would write blue text on the streets when they were doing their activations. Yeah, I thought that was a great way that real life takes from art and delivers the message in a different way.
And I don't think I didn't connect the dots that closely, even though I saw the show. And then, of course, just less than 8 months later, the BLM movement took off. But it is now in retrospect obvious that these things were interconnected, or at least some of the iconography was. But it's quite a thing. And by the way, not everything here works for me. This is one of those things that they take some big swings and it wobbles a lot. But then even when you're kind of like, well, I don't know, that wasn't what I would have done, then it delivers like absolutely incredible, breathtaking writing and acting. And it's quite something to watch.
Oh, totally. And the fact that you watch an episode and it's just so incredible, but you just cannot wait to push play on the next one.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yep. All right. So we're going to start talking about, maybe I'll do this solo, Darren. We'll see. You know what? Let's just do it. We're going to watch the finale of Derry, and then
let's do it.
And then we'll try to be as positive as possible. I'm going to try really hard to be positive. Oh, and of course, but we can fill up the episode with this. There's a lot to talk about. Netflix, yet again, big premiere this week. We have the Wake Up Dead Man movie premiering on Friday. So we will discuss that. We will discuss the finale of Derry, even though we really don't want to. And then
I can't promise to be positive. I cannot promise that.
And then we'll be watching Fallout. And I have another dystopian series from HBO that you have not watched, Darren, but I have watched more than once. Watched this one by myself, then watched it with my wife. And I liked it even more the second time around. And this is Station 11. So as we watch Fallout, we will also be dipping into Station 11. And Darren and I will be discussing it here on the pod.
All right. Sounds interesting.
All right, Darren. Enjoy your concert. I will talk to you soon.
Got to go. All right. Thanks so much, Victor. See you next week.
Take care. Bye.